This is the Segovia Show.
It seems the war drums are beating louder and louder as the Chinese Communist Party intends to follow through with their plan to reunify Taiwan to the mainland, having never ruled the island. Taiwan is and has been an independent, sovereign country. Recently, U.S. defense officials were in discussions with allies in the Indo-Pacific region regarding Taiwan. These reports indicate that the U.S. has been actively engaging with allies to discuss the threat posed by China to Taiwan and to encourage them to increase their own defense spending. Taiwan's deputy foreign minister told Sky News' Helen Ann Smith that China is preparing to invade.
The population needed not to be naive like the past. That's thinking that, China is a big market. They need to work in terms of economy with Taiwan, so we don't need to be worried. China will not invade. Will not invade Taiwan. No, it's not true. China is preparing to invade Taiwan.
My guest today is Joshua Philipp. He is an award-winning investigative reporter with the Epoch Times and is the host of Epoch TV's Crossroads program. He is a recognized expert on unrestricted warfare, asymmetrical hybrid warfare, subversion, and historical perspectives on today's issues. His 10-plus years of research and investigations on the Chinese Communist Party's subversion and related topics give him unique insight into the global threat and political landscape. In this casual setting, we discuss the Chinese Communist Party's threats to invade and if they will follow through with this sooner rather than later against Taiwan, and Taiwan's strategic importance in today's global economy, particularly in the technology space.
I haven't been to Taiwan in about 10 years, so I hope to get back there.
I was out there, I think, 2 years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah?
I was out there for the elections.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you this. How often have you gone to Taiwan, say, in the past decade?
That was my only time.
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah.
Dude, you at least had hit the night market, right?
Oh, I did. Yeah, it was totally cool. I got stinky tofu. It was horrible.
Dude.
Never do it again, but I tried it.
I couldn't do it, man.
Dude, I don't recommend it. Not even as like an experiment. Like it tastes like it smells. That way, you know.
I'm like that's like 2 or 3 blocks away, and I'm like, oh, honey, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's stinky tofu. It's like, well, we're not walking that way.
Oh, dude. You know what? I was like, you know what? I'll try just about anything once, and I did not like that one bit. Everything else was great. I liked everything else, but stinky tofu.
Right? I could tell you that I visited. I think it was 4 times, from 2009 to 2005. I would say I've been about 4 times. I saw the transformation of just how much infrastructure was being put up. So I saw were you familiar, or at least they told you about the big museum over there? They call it the Imperial Palace Museum.
I went to one of the major museums, and I don't know if that's the one I went to, but it was the one where they had a lot of, I mean, I guess they all have, the ancient Chinese stuff.
Yeah, but it's the one that had like the biggest collection. A lot of the relics.
Yeah, I think that was the one. Yeah, it was the one. You walk up the stairs, and it's kind of like, looks like a big temple almost, right?
Yeah, so that one was not called the Imperial Palace Museum. The first time I went, it was called the Chiang Kai-shek Museum. So this is before Taiwan opened up travel to mainland Chinese. So when they came over, they changed the name to the Imperial Palace Museum. And when I showed up the second time, there were, I think, 3 or 4 times over capacity. I'm like, how am I supposed to get in here? This is insane. And a lot of the touristy places really changed. You can tell there were different mannerisms at play, cultural differences too. So, a lot of it changed, but the infrastructure, I've seen all these things go up, and something that you touched on. So I'm so glad we're recording because, dude, we're getting into the sway of things. So might as well. Joshua, welcome to the Segovia show, dude. It's good to have you on.
Pleasure being here. Yeah, actually, on Taiwan, one of the real cool things I did. me and my team, we went to Kinmen Island, which is where you can see across the water mainland China. And we got to go through all the old war tunnels where they actually fended off the CCP. It was totally cool.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that was totally cool. They had multiple levels to it. You go down pretty far. We had a guide, or we would have gotten lost. But
sure.
there's like a below level that's off limits because it's like too dangerous and stuff. But it was cool. It was really cool.
Oh, it was that's south of Taiwan, isn't it?
It's north.
Oh, it's north.
It's the islands north. You can like, it's really close to mainland China. You can like, it's right across the bay basically.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. I'll have to ask the wife because I spent time in mostly north Taiwan because where my family is.
Yeah.
I've always said I wanted to go to south. I just never had the time to get down there.
Well, this wasn't. Kinmen is an island.
Yeah.
It's like one of the islands.
Yeah, and the family usually when they talk to me about islands, they're referring to the ones in the south. That's why I'm like,
Yeah. Well, those are the nice ones. Kinmen is not like Kinmen is like a war memorial. They have like I got pictures with it. It's like there's like tanks on the beach still. Like
Really?
Like rusted. There's still all the tank traps, like the big metal tank traps, the X things on the beach. It's pretty cool from like a war history standpoint.
Well, I got to make a point of going to that place.
This is bullet holes everywhere.
Wow.
It's wild, man. Yeah.
Man, I definitely want to check that out. Yeah, because a lot of what changed during my visits to Taiwan, and in case this didn't make the cut, in seeing before opening up travel to mainland Chinese to then afterwards, and just seeing the infrastructure being put up everywhere. As I was seeing, I'm like, oh wow, so there's gonna be this must be great for the Taiwanese economy. And my father-in-law tells me, it's like, well, everybody doing the work are Chinese mainland, not Taiwanese. Like, well, that's kind of silly.
That's a good point to make, actually, and that's a big problem they have too. Is when they make business, when you do business with the CCP, they'll rip you off as much as they can. I mean, I guess everybody kind of does business like that, like internationally. Like America gets ripped off on just about everything, but especially with a lot of the Belt and Road Initiative deals with the CCP, they'll make a contract with your government. They'll get the jobs. They'll control the business after. They run the construction. I mean, like the whole 9 yards, basically.
Yeah, so it was really sad seeing that all this, what looked like massive constructions happening everywhere, and the currency exchange is basically the same 17 years later since my first visit. Like it was still like 30 Taiwanese dollars per US dollar. And I'm like, this could have benefited, the Taiwanese people to get this work going. And I think what really saddened me was when all those high rises with all those condos and things like that, as they're giving me tours of the real estate, it's like, oh yeah, that one's valued at $10 million. That one over there though is like $100 million.
It's crazy.
And I said, you mean Taiwanese dollars? Like, no, US dollars. Like,
Yeah.
why?
No, but buying like a normal apartment there, like from what I've been told, the wages are super low, but the real estate is like beyond American real estate. It's insane. I don't know how people even survive there, like with the wages they get.
They can't. And a lot of the stuff that progressives try to use as their line against capitalism over here actually applies over there. It's like there is the haves and the have-nots. And one of those night markets, one of the big ones that I was at, I saw this I would say middle-aged man selling sticks of gum for 25 Taiwanese. I forget. I think it was 25 Taiwanese dollars or whatever, the equivalent thereof. But he's selling sticks of gum, and I just learned about $10 million condos. And I'm like, oh man, can you even make the rent? It's
rough there. I feel bad for him, but probably a big problem with that is because so much. Ironically, it's because they get so much business with China, because you have people coming in and buying real estate and buying that stuff, and so they create a monopoly on all the assets, and it's limited assets. They're not building more of it, and so it squeezes the whole market.
Yeah, and that's technically how they got a stranglehold on the country, economically speaking, to then technically take over from the inside out. So they don't have to fire a bullet. That's why what you mentioned, I don't think this man made the cut. So it's an inverse relationship in what we understand as conservative and progressive parties. And like the more conservative party over there is friendly on business terms with China, whereas what is seen as the liberal Democrat Party is the one that's very anti-CCP.
The Democratic Progressive Party is the anti-CCP one, and they're like, the pro-trans party and stuff like that. So like they're basically the Democrats. They're not as far left there, but they're basically like our Democrats, but they're the very anti-CCP one. The KMT, the Kuomintang, they're more pro-business, but pro-business with the CCP also, and so unfortunately they do keep the doors way more open. In fact, I even mentioned Kinmen Island, which is in the north. KMT wants Kinmen to become like a dual state region almost, like where the CCP, like where it's not fully under the Taiwanese government. It'd be almost like a free trade zone with the CCP or something.
Really? Dude.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird proposals like that.
Why on earth would they try to give China a foothold? The Taiwan Strait is the natural buffer. Why let them hey, there's a little spot where you might be able to land?
Well, you know what's crazy? When I was in Kinmen, I went and I talked to a lot of people there. Life there is really not very. Let's just say people live in poverty there. It's a very poor region, and for a lot of them, business is almost entirely with mainland China. And so the problem you have in Kinmen is, national identity. A lot of them don't really see themselves as Taiwanese. They call themselves they're Kinmenese or something like that. And they'll take a boat to China every day. And what the way their income works is they have a special alcohol. I can't remember where they brew it from. I want to say it's like potatoes or something like that, or like some grain. But the government provides this to the people of Kinmen, and then they're allowed to go sell it. And so they'll go to mainland China and they'll sell this alcohol the government gives them. And that's for a lot of them, that's a good chunk of their income. It's an interesting place.
Wow. That's news to me. I didn't know. And I spent a lot of time in North Taiwan, so I've never heard of any of this. This is fascinating. So but still the idea that I could see why they might do it, but that would be suicidal. It's just
yeah. Well, you know what's interesting with the Chinese Communist Party? The CCP's theory on capitalism is they say so everything in their system is based on traditional Chinese warfare, right? So they've taken the most nefarious parts of deception as warfare, and they've integrated it into their system. So if you understand traditional Chinese warfare, a lot of people think Sun Tzu and all that, but it's actually more complicated. A lot of it goes by what are called the 8 trigrams, which is the Taoist theory of the universe, which is, you ever see those, they have 3 lines and they'll have a gap, in a couple parts of it or something like that, and it's different parts of it. Basically, they apply that to everything. It's part of their divination. It's part of their understanding of nature. It's tied in with Chinese medicine. It's tied in even with human interaction. And so the basic theory is this: every strength has a weakness. Everything has an opposite. So, for example, the weakness of strength is gentleness. For example, a stone can be weathered away by drops of water, for example. The strongest men in history were not defeated by strong men. They were defeated by women, typically. Think Hercules and stuff like that, right? And so they believe the weakness of capitalism is material interest. That's their theory. And so they believe that they can subvert the open societies of the world by manipulating, by pushing it to extremes. So if you say we have freedom of speech, they'll say, okay, well, we will take advantage of that. We'll send people to your country, and they'll criticize your government and tear you down from the inside. We believe in free market capitalism, the free market. Well, good. We'll go start businesses in your country, and we will use the money to take over your economy and then bribe your politicians. we'll basically control you through financial interest. And look at Hollywood, look at the NBA, look at Taiwan. I know Taiwan's pushing back on this more than the U.S. is, but that's their theory on how they can control different societies that are, capitalistic.
And it's working, unfortunately.
Really unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah, because I'm Salvadorian, and the transformation of El Salvador has been just incredible. So
yeah, I partly grew up in Costa Rica, actually. I mean, different from El Salvador, but it's similar region, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a little south of it. The thing is, whenever I've had to travel to El Salvador, it would have to be last minute notice to any family. I would always be moving from place to place, having to avoid certain roads and regions because either whoever might be interested in Americanos. So try to blend in, and I sucked at blending in. That was terrible. It's
It doesn't work for you, huh?
No, it's like don't dress in any brand clothes. I don't have brand clothes. I have Kmart clothes, so it's okay. But no, as soon as they say, Americano, it's like, well, that was quick. So what gave it away? Yeah. My accent. Yeah, that's what gave it away. But the thing is, in that, I had about a 10-year gap in travel to El Salvador because after that it just got way too dangerous. So when I finally went back, it was after Nayib Bukele was voted in, major transformation. My parents had gone first, and they're like, hey, we're actually out and about at night, and we're going out for dinner. So I'm like, you can do that? So when I went, and I'm taking my little family with me, I had 3 kids at the time, and no one ever met my wife down there. So this was like an entirely new experience for everyone. And I was just there for a weekend also because you just never know. And it was just very odd to not have to. I still keep my head on a swivel, but at the same time, the fear wasn't as prevalent as it was before. And I felt I could relax and enjoy my time, which I did. And as time's gone on, and I have family that works with the Department of Tourism over there. So when I had them on, we were talking, but afterwards, when we went off the air and everything, I told them, like, hey, I'm assuming, just like it is the Belt and Road Initiative, everything has been built by China. And I know Nayib Bukele is a smart man, but have they checked for any bugs on anything built there? The library, the roads,
they'll do it in everything. They'll do it in everything,
right?
Yeah,
and that's just and that was my main concern. It's like I feel there was a stranglehold, maybe understood but not well seen, about China gripping El Salvador. That's why when El Salvador was like, oh, we accept Bitcoin as a currency, and that became the first thing, even the International Monetary Fund forced them to stop it. And that happened earlier this year because he wanted to get a loan for El Salvador, and they forced, well, you need to get rid of your Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. It's like, it's like these. Well, everybody.
The U.S. wants the U.S. dollar to be maintained as the world reserve currency.
Yeah, and seeing that, it's just, I felt like that was one way to break away from maybe Chinese reliance, because hey, I'm using crypto, specifically Bitcoin, and there's a lot of rare earth minerals and precious metals in El Salvador that are. It's just estimated, I forget the numbers, it's just so much there. They're like, hey, we could mine these. And I think it was Michael Fallon from Sovereign Nations that posted, correction, that you'll allow China to mine it for you. And I'm like, that might be true. So it's interesting to see. I'm going to keep a close eye on that, because I know El Salvador, economically speaking, just like Taiwan, yes, we see this fantastic development. Us as tourists going over there, say Taiwan and El Salvador, our dollar can go far. Not the same for the people.
It changed a lot. I went down to Panama 3 years ago now. I was investigating the border crisis. And when I was a kid, I grew up between San Diego, New Jersey, and Costa Rica. My dad was really into surfing, so we'd go down to Costa Rica and surf part of the year. We were on the Osa Peninsula, and so you can see Panama on a clear day from where we're at. But Costa Rica was cheap, Panama was cheaper, and it was interesting. We went down there, me and my team, investigating the whole border crisis. Panama is not cheap anymore. It's like America prices for everything. And I mean, it's crazy watching the whole world transform like that. I wonder if it's the internet where there's almost been like a global price fixing, or maybe it's Chinese business. Also in Panama, we saw huge amounts of like Chinese infrastructure and all kinds of stuff. They're even trying to bridge the Darien Gap now. I was down there looking at the building projects they have. It's crazy what China's doing down there. Like they're getting into everything.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. I mean, Mao himself envisioned his Red Army walking all over the earth, right?
Yeah, well, and look where it's at, right?
Yeah, I don't know at what point they figured, hey, we don't have to throw bodies at this and make them die. We can just buy them. And sure enough.
Yeah. Well, you know what they do. It's very nefarious. So the CCP, it's pretty well understood that they rig their economic numbers, right? Yeah. So I've heard it explained before by like Chinese who've left China that the economy in China is basically a Ponzi scheme. It's a giant Ponzi scheme. So every single year they say, 3.5% GDP growth, come and invest. They block their companies from being audited when they're publicly listed. Every time that they've been audited, it's been discovered they were lying about their numbers. But they get fed money by the CCP. The CCP can lie about the true state of its economy. They can lie about the stock market. They can lie about everything. If you question it in China, you can get arrested for espionage. Wow. And that's one of the big things happening. They actually even made it worse recently with some of the changes to their law. So what happens is you have Chinese state-run businesses that don't need to make a profit. They go and they get publicly listed in other countries. They lie about their profits on the Chinese side. They get pumped up everywhere else. Western investors pour their money in just like a giant Ponzi scheme, and it props it up. But when they go into countries, they use that. So I'll give you an example. One of the big cases was in Australia. They had, I think it was 3 railroad industries that basically were the biggest ones in Australia. China went in, the CCP. They have a Chinese state-run rail company. They went in. They're funded by the CCP, so they don't need to make a profit. They bid on contracts. Hey, we'll build your railroads for you. They bid below cost. So a private, normal business cannot compete if you're bidding below cost. Not only do you not make a profit, you lose money. So obviously they won the contracts. Once they won the contracts, they had a monopoly. They used the monopoly to buy up 2 of the other companies. The third one went out of business. And so the CCP now bought up control of the entire rail industry in Australia, using state-run companies to do it.
Wow. Yeah, you explained a little bit about the solar panel thing in that talk you gave in Southern California. Oh, yeah. When anybody here ever hears about Solyndra, with the what a gross waste of federal funds to prop up a company, and because so and so was connected to it, we make it political in that way. Then you gave some insight I never heard before, and how the CCP made sure pretty much that it went down. I'm like, huh. Yeah, that's interesting. So they're doing it here too, in one way or another, flooding the market with very cheap solar panels. Not to say that they're bad solar panels, but just like cheaper.
Well, and also they have kill switches in them, as they've recently found. When it comes to green energy, though, that's another thing. So not only do they have a monopoly on green energy, it's not that we can't build it. It's that they're doing the same thing to us that they did in Australia. Talk about wind turbines, okay? So do you remember back during the Obama administration when Obama actually, well, it wasn't him, but his Justice Department, they indicted a group of Chinese hackers. That was Unit 61398, right, with the General Staff Department, 3rd Department. They never arrested them, but they they put out the indictments, right? If you actually read the court documents, and I read the whole thing, one of the things that they were accused of stealing was wind turbines. So they stole the wind turbine designs and technology from an American company, despite the fact that it was known the CCP, basically what happened was the Chinese military stole the technology. They give it to what are called processing facilities. These are run through like Chinese universities. So they steal the technology through the military. They pass the stolen intellectual property to Chinese university research groups. The research groups then feed the stolen technology, once they reverse engineer it, to Chinese state-run businesses. The Chinese state-run businesses build it, and then they compete on the open market with the same companies they robbed in the first place. And it's allowed to happen. In particular, with the wind turbines, it was known by the U.S. government, because Obama himself, during his administration, indicted the hackers who did it, right? Or at least put out the arrest warrants for them. They stole the wind turbine technology, and then they built the wind turbines, and then used the things that they stole from us to outbid the company they stole from in America. How is that even allowed to happen?
It's wild,
right? And that happened after the fact. Like they were still allowed to bid on contracts after the fact against the same company they robbed using the technology we know they stole, and we let it happen.
That one leaves me speechless. I can't add to that.
It's just crazy, right? It's insane. Like, why do we let that kind of stuff go on?
Yeah, because I know that if a U.S.-based company wants to do business in China, they got to conform to different rules and laws and regulations.
Dude, you got to give them your intellectual property, and you have to give them your source code, and you have to like hire one of their, you have to hire their family members or give them positions. You have to like basically get corrupt. You have to engage in corruption. Wow. You have to have like a Communist Party cell if you have a company over a certain size, and we let them do all that to us.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get to something that's gonna be questioning a lot of interesting things that's happening. We're delving into this whole tech sector stuff, because it's very fascinating how China has their hands on everything, but the way the world is moving, how fast it's going, and in some cases, people have job security fears, rightly so, as it moves towards AI. You and I kind of like, we couldn't delve into it, but it was interesting and fascinating. And I recommend to anybody that's watching or listening, I'm going to be leaving a link to that in the description down below, to a presentation you did about the AI fears. So that was a good presentation. I think I heard that thing at least 3 or 4 times, because I just found it fascinating, because that was 2 months ago as we record this that you published that, and just to see how much of that has actually already happened. It's just so
it's crazy.
It's moving so fast.
It's crazy too.
But people don't understand, in order to get this going, you need chips that power everything in tech. Mm-hmm. And that's why we started off with Taiwan, because there's a strategic importance of Taiwan, being that for some reason, somehow, most of the world depends on the chips that comes from Taiwan, whether it's our cell phones or computers and things like that. So that would be the vested interest of China getting in and just taking over the thing, because now they have this. Before, wars were fought over natural resources. In the digital space, that's as close to a natural resource as it gets. So if they control the chips, they'll control the world, and they'll have much of a leg up with their AI. Some people already said they have a leg up with DeepSeek, how much intellectual property theft was involved in that. I could see the same about OpenAI. Some people call it closed AI. So it's interesting to see. But how do you think that's more of a reason why the CCP has kind of, it feels like they moved up their invasion timeline for Taiwan?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. So TSMC, right, Taiwanese semiconductor company, they are one of the top chip companies in the world. There are some other countries with it as well, like, South Korea has some of that as well. Mm-hmm. South Korea is dealing with a lot of other problems of Chinese subversion. Mm. It's not as simple as some people think, though, where China could just like invade Taiwan, take over the country, and like boom, they own TSMC. I mean, unless we kept trading with them, which we might. Like, I mean, look at what the CCP did to Hong Kong. They ended the agreement they had with the UK. They took over Hong Kong, ended the whole one country, two systems agreement, and we still do business with them. So maybe the CCP's betting that, hey, we take over Taiwan, give them a Hong Kong, status. Hey, they're one country, two systems. They keep their form of government, but they're under the CCP. And look, you can still trade with TSMC. Wonderful, right? Maybe they'll try something like that. I don't know. But from what I understand, it's not so simple. I know when you get into like the real complexities of semiconductors, it's not like the CCP could roll in and just take it over. Like they're already trying to through different ways where they hire, for example, technicians who used to work at TSMC, like they scalp them all the time, where they hire like all the people who work there. They've had people who work on that stuff come over to China and try to build their semiconductor industry, and they just can't really do it. And so, there's some technicalities with that. From what I understand, it's more like the machinery, and there's kind of a kill switch built into it. Where they would not get it if they took it over. I think the more concerning thing though is conquering by other means. You don't have to invade a country to take over a country. And the way the CCP thinks about military and warfare is also like this. Taiwan's a bit of an exception because they are talking about actually invading and taking it over. But the way they think about warfare is, what do you want to get out of it? Let's say invasion is done, troops, the last bullet's fired, they reestablish order. What do you get out of it, right? Well, you control their politics, you control their media, you control their culture, you control their business. What the CCP does is it just tries to do these without invading.
Yeah, exactly.
They try to take over the politics, they try to take over the culture, they try to take over the businesses, and they try to take over the media. You control these, you control the country. You don't have to invade them to do that. And so a lot of their manipulation of open systems, a lot of their subversion, the spy networks, this is what they're working on. This is their goal. And if they can do this country by country, they can take over the world without having to invade anybody, at least not militarily.
Yeah, is the agreeable.
But on chips and AI, it's also true that, so the CCP has a slogan which is surpass you at the turning point. They believe it's difficult to compete within an established market. So what they try to do is look at what is the next development, what is the next turning point in the market. Electric vehicles was a turning point. Green energy was a turning point. It turns out that they were even putting up firms to lobby the U.S. government to try to make us adopt it. And they were trying to make us adopt policies that would benefit their companies because they control the green industry, right? Even though they're one of the biggest polluters in the world, they control the green industry, right, to a large extent. But they were trying to make us hamstring ourselves, basically destroying our own energy industry, so we'd have to buy everything from them, right? That's what they were lobbying for, that they were doing it. The next big turning point, quote unquote, is AI. And so whoever controls the chips controls basically the AI. And they're stealing it too. DeepSeek, if you asked it, who are you, DeepSeek? It'd be like, I'm ChatGPT. You'd be like, well, that's awkward, right? I thought you were DeepSeek. No, I'm ChatGPT. I don't know how that happened. A little awkward. But they're using their normal methods of stealing and everything else like that, and stealing code. And it's one of the problems too when you have things open source, like OpenAI is supposed to be. Yeah. Because it is all public, and that means other countries can just steal it and rip it off, which they're doing as well. But as you mentioned too, the chips are going to be the big part with all that.
Yeah, that's the only way anything can go forward. And touching a little bit on what you mentioned about controlling the media, I noticed a lot more CCP propaganda by either paid influencers, even American influencers, where you say, look at Shanghai, look how futuristic it is. And they're just posting all these like, oh, China is not what people assume it is. Look how forward China is over here and how modern it is, how clean it is. It's like, well, get out of the big city and look at the real thing. Yeah, because I know that if CCP is going to set foot in San Francisco, Gavin Newsom's going to clean everything up. And look at that. The homeless crisis is fixed. The streets are clean. They just moved it somewhere else. So same thing, the same optics. And I noticed there's a lot more of that been happening lately. I've seen him on X, which has been interesting to me because I'm like, I don't expect these type of people to be sharing this kind of stuff. And it just begs the question, are they getting a payout from the CCP? Are the bot farm engagements allowing them to like, you know what, we'll engage with the bot farms and then they get a paycheck? Could be. That's what X honestly feels like with the algorithm lately. But that's also something that's been of concern to me, how Elon has been someone that has lauded how China is forward thinking with their green policy. How like, look at all their solar, their wind and all that. And he encourages that and wants to see that here too. I'm like, you should know better than that. That's not the way forward for renewable energies and such. So I found that fascinating because touching on something we touched on a little earlier about US-based firms going to work in China and having to give up so much, basically give them your company. As I understand it, it doesn't look like Tesla had to give up their autonomy and their code to the CCP. And if that's the case, it's very interesting to see, or to ask the question, why did that not apply?
It used to. So I don't know about handing over their code and stuff like that. I would assume they have to an extent, because I don't think you can even do business in China unless you do that to an extent. The big controversy Elon Musk had in China is that for a while there was this big weird spree. It was all over Chinese media. Teslas were catching on fire all the time. And the Chinese Communist Party basically sent a message to Elon Musk saying, hey, fall into line, or we're going to fine you. We're going to go after your company. As soon as Elon folded to the CCP a little bit, and I can't remember the terms of that whole thing, suddenly all the Teslas stopped catching on fire in China, right? The whole story of that died away. You stopped hearing anything about that. And it did have me wondering whether the CCP was like staging stuff or like faking stuff, and they were using that to basically ruin the name of Tesla. But that was a big thing for a while. That went on for like several weeks, like a month. Mm-hmm. On the point of the YouTubers and influencers, so that's also a big thing. So the CCP publicly, they have a big program where they're trying to bring YouTubers to China for like, I call them the Truman Show. Right?
Good way to put it.
Come watch the Truman Show. So you get to be the guy and everybody around you's an actor. They're doing that to any influencer with more than 300,000 followers on YouTube. And so they have a huge program right now. It's a big propaganda drive. As you mentioned, though, it's all fake. So new numbers came out, and they're saying that, hey, surprise, the CCP has been lying about its poverty levels. They say there's about a billion
Yikes.
People in mass poverty in China. And you're not talking like poor people in America, where you're poor here and you live in like the suburbs. You're talking like poor, like, you can't buy like a McDonald's toy for your kid poor, like that poor, right? Yeah. Like dirt poor. There was one guy who used to do a lot of videos in China and broke away, and he got blacklisted. Wow. He's a real popular YouTuber. His name, I think he goes by LaoY86. Lao Wai is kind of like the derogatory term in China for like white person, right? Maybe it's like white foreigner or something like that, or. But LaoY86. So he was in China and he was doing like motorcycle, like touring the countryside videos.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
He's real good, but he started going to areas the CCP didn't want him to go to. And so he started seeing, the Chinese police, like armed police, are following me. Eventually, he started showing things they didn't want him to be showing, and they went after him. He got kicked out. And so now he's become one of like the guys online, like showing like the real China, and he's like getting just blacklisted. Like, YouTube censoring him, like everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you do see the two sides of it. If you want to go show like the pretty lights in Shanghai, you can do that. But you want to show like the real China, you're going to be public enemy number one for it.
I remember, I don't know if they're still active. I haven't looked up their stuff. There was an independent news organization or news channel on YouTube called The Journeyman. And they did a piece on the ghost cities in China. Oh, my goodness. They built an entire city of Paris, and there was nobody there.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I seen that.
They also did a piece on they followed a oil repair technician to go analyze what was sabotage on the oil lines in Mexico. And the whole thing just like a scene out of Sicario, as they were being followed and shadowed by the cartels. And it was the journalist, the camera guy, and the equipment guy. And I see them all gearing up like they're going for war. And then you see them getting into this army Humvee followed by a convoy. I'm like, where are they going? It's like, oh, just to go look at a pipeline. Like, oh my goodness. And then they have police escort to get them there. It's like, well, anyway, if they're probably still on YouTube. I hope they're still active. They did really good pieces. But that one about the ghost cities, like, how did you guys get out of there with this footage? Because that was a long piece. And I don't remember if it was them or if it was someone else, but they had someone had like, oh look, we're being followed by the police on where to the airport kind of thing. So I don't know if it was them or a different video, but the fact that they were able to get out with that footage was just gnarly, because it really put into perspective that, hey, we're being lied to, and there's people that are actively allowing that to happen because of the almighty dollar, and it's just sad.
No, it is unfortunate. And it's unfortunate too that people are willing to do that for money, like, again, it's a big problem, I think, and the CCP does take advantage of that quite a bit. On the point of the ghost cities too, you know why the CCP was doing those? They wanted to have internal circulation of cash. So the whole theory was, we'll give out loans. Well, here's the thing: they want money to flow within their economy. So the theory is, you give money to the local government, the local government buys a project, right? They call them mega projects. We're going to build a freeway that goes nowhere. It's like literally a freeway that just goes to like the desert or something like that. We're going to build an airport, and they build an airport in a place that nobody's ever going to use it, like literally middle of nowhere, full-blown airport. We're going to build a brand new city modeled after Paris, and they build it, and nobody lives there because it's a ghost city, right? Yeah. Oftentimes, real shoddy building practices too, because they know it's all for show. But the theory is they get loans for it. There's a lot of corruption involved, so everybody takes a bit of cream off the top. When it gets down to the bottom of it, there's like not much left. The money flows to the businesses because they want to hire the construction companies. Construction companies pay their guys. The problem is you have corruption at every level, so the local government takes them off the top. The next guy takes them off the top. The business takes them off the top. When the money goes to the actual construction workers, they barely get anything. And so it kind of ruins the entire strategy, because what the CCP wants, they want the average guy to have a bit of money to spend, right? Hey, we'll pump money into the economy, people will spend it, and that's how the economy normally works. The problem is that the economy like that doesn't work under communism, when you have essentially just a mass discrepancy between the rich and the poor. Yeah. You have your Communist Party and your CCP leaders and their kids, and you have everybody else, right? The dirt poor of the rest of the people. So what happens is they build these things, nobody buys it because they don't have money, first off, at least not the average person. Nobody wants to live there because it's so shoddily built, it's so badly made, and there's no kind of like economic benefit for it because it's not in an area where anything is. Yeah. Right? The freeway to nowhere, the airport in the middle of nowhere, the shopping mall that has no shops, the city that has nobody living in it. And so what happens, they go into debt, right? They take out bank loans for it, they go into debt and they default on their loans. That's one of the big reasons, by the way, why they're having a banking crisis right now, is because all that debt is catching up with all the different cities that took out money for it. Yeah. And actually the Belt and Road Initiative, where they're doing these mass infrastructure projects, That's them using that same model, but they're trying to do it in other countries. So they're building basically mega projects in other countries, but the same problem. It's bad deals, and the countries are getting into debt traps. They can't pay off the debt. They're defaulting on it. The ownership is passing to the CCP, and a lot of people are realizing they got the bad end of the deal, basically.
Yeah, and in some cases, too little, too late. But that whole thing with was it Everglades? Everglades.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Evergrande,
Something
right?
like that.
That was the major real estate industry in China. Just went belly up.
Yeah, I think they just got bailed out or something because we don't hear about it on the news anymore. It was too big to ignore, and now no one talks about it. That was worse than what happened with the mortgage meltdown in 2007 and 2008.
Yeah, well, again, that's what happens when your economy is a Ponzi scheme. So what was happening in China was you had mystery investors who were basically buying the debt and then forgiving the debt. And so, look, if you're a bank and you're like, all right, I have $1 billion. Normally you get audited. People are like, okay, well, who are you and where'd the money come from? You're like, well, you open the vault and there's like an IOU, $1 billion in it, right? Like nothing's there. Normally you can't do that. You get audited, people check. In China, you can't do that. And so when you digitize everything, they can be like, oh yeah, we have $1 billion in this industry. If you check, we'll arrest you, but just, you're not allowed to question us or we'll arrest you, which is the case in China. You can't question the economy or question any of it. And so what they do is they say, hey, this investment firm that you're not allowed to audit has X amount of money, and they're buying up the debt, and they're forgiving it. And so they basically bail them out as a huge Ponzi scheme, and they basically count on the Western markets to just accept that, hey, all that debt doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I don't know how well it's going to work for them, whether they can actually stand up, but that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, and it's going to collapse under its own weight. It has to. It's just that you can't have a communist government trying to employ some capitalist tactics that run completely contrary to what they do. It's either one or the other, and they're going to be too prideful to let go of what they already have, and it's just going to eventually collapse under its own weight. At least we assume. But all they got to do is call every other country and say, hey, we're calling our loans. You guys got to pay them. And everybody's gonna be like, "Dear God,"
which they are doing. They are doing that,
right? Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. It's like, yeah, we can't pay you right now, and that's, to me, that is the whole collapsing under the weight of debt. As someone that's religious, is the only way I see this whole resetting of the entire debt clock and everybody just collapsing under bankruptcy, starting from zero, and just saying, "Hey, let's just do a one world currencies, and we're all starting together. Let's just all pull together and just start at zero, and this is our new currency." That's the only way I could ever see it happening. And every time I look at what's happening with China and where they got their tentacles in there, it's like, that's pretty darn close, because there's always this conspiracy that, oh, it's going to be like a 3-currency system. The Americas will be the dollar, the European Union is going to be the euro, and whatever dominant Asian dollar is going to be over on the Far East Asia. Like, no,
that's what they want.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be just one big old thing, and because they're even over here with the cryptocurrency strategic reserve, that the Democrats were trying to add backdoor access to these things so they can regulate it, which defeats the whole purpose of crypto. And with all that is to say, well, they want to control some kind of digital currency. You just move away from whatever monetary background that we have and just say, hey, we're all equal. We're all one world anyway. So let's just start at zero. That's the way I kind of see it going. And so far, it seems like it's happening. But if anything, the catalyst would be what happens with China.
Yeah. Well, I've said before, the Chinese economy is not from, people say, wow, look what the CCP did, built up the economy. They didn't build it up. I'd actually say the Chinese economy was built by Western investment and Western business. What built up the Chinese economy was Western manufacturing and Western investment. Up until the reform and opening up, which is what they did, right? They reformed and opened up. Basically, they moved, prior to Deng Xiaoping, And when they did that, all the businesses were owned by the Chinese military. What they did in the opening up was allowed Western investment and Western manufacturing, right? So the wealth of China, all those big shiny buildings and everything else you're seeing, it's all built by Western money. It's all built by foreign money. And, I really do think that until the West says, hey, we're not going to invest in your companies anymore unless you show us the books. Unless you allow us, if we're not going to let you publicly trade your companies unless you let us audit them like we can every other business on the stock market. Why is it that, normally you have to have the doors open for audits on like everything, but you can't do it for Chinese companies? Until they do that, the CCP, which is basically, think of it like the, Bernie Madoff, right? It worked fine for him until he got investigated.
Yes.
That's the way it works. So until they investigate them, it's going to keep running this Ponzi scheme. The whole thing is a giant Ponzi scheme, and it's being floated by Western investment.
Yes. And one of the big examples was how Hollywood was like, we can make twice as much more just favoring their market. So like Iron Man 3 is a great example because they just kind of add something on at the very end that they do not play in American. They don't play it in American cinema, but they'll play it over there and say, see, it's there. But it's also very interesting because there is a 100% Chinese finance film, and it's one of the most patriotic films that we've had in the past 10 years, and that's Midway. That is the whole thing that just makes no sense to me. And that one is as true as possible. And it was 100% Chinese finance. And the part that I find cringy is that the film also gives respect to the Japanese navalmen that fought in the war. Like, hey, they were the bad guys. So nothing makes sense to me with that whole structure, but they got away with it. And I want to respect your time here because I know we had a blackout for an hour, but man, we could just lost peeling this onion. But I did want to squeeze in, in the last few minutes that we have, what buffer do you see that might happen? Because looks at TSMC they got their factory going on. I think it's in Phoenix, Arizona. I thought they was going to have one in Texas, but it looks like it's Arizona. Two cell phone companies that one of them said they're going to build in America, but their first phone is Chinese. Calling you out, Trump Mobile. Let's get back to me. So they intend to build later. Like, yeah, but it's not going to be cheap. One such company that did launch last year, and that was Unplugged. This is co-founded by Eric Prince, formerly of Blackwater, and Iran Karpin, who is best known for his contributions. Well, some might say Pegasus, but that's his buddies that did it. That's a notorious malware, but wasn't really Iran. But that's where they associated him with. Anyway, they just announced this week, as they relaunched their phone, that their next gen is going to be USA made. And that stood out to me because that means that's the second or third company I've been hearing recently that wants to move to build here, which means there has to be some kind of manufacturing already in place. From the big, beautiful bill, since you made your speech, have you seen any buffers that might help us or are beneficial or might not even have any effect in the industry at all as to manufacturing, including chipsets here?
Yeah, so one big thing with American chip manufacturing. From what I understand, a lot of the technologies used by Taiwan to develop chips and even like some of the Japanese industries, a lot of it came from the United States in the first place. A lot of the innovation is actually American innovation. And we've basically given industries to other countries that we regard as allies that have, and then we buy from them to kind of prop them up. So from what I understand, it would not be a big move to bring it to the United States. It really would not be. The big thing America's going to have to do is lower the cost of manufacturing. One thing that me and my colleague Roman Belmakov have been talking about, one of the hidden elements of tariffs is they cause a devaluing of currency. And we believe, and I believe that may be one of the reasons why Trump actually wants tariffs, is to actually devalue the US dollar, which would actually make us more competitive on manufacturing.
Fascinating.
It wouldn't impact Americans in terms of quality of life, but it makes us more competitive for international business, like way more competitive for at least again for like production. And the other big thing, of course, is that the big narrative, bringing back manufacturing. We also need natural resources. Bringing back a factory, it's not just the factory. It's not just the end product. It's the materials, timber, steel, rare earth minerals. It's the logistics, the truck drivers, transportation. It's every step of the way. It's marketing, it's design, it's R&D, everything. And so bringing it back is going to include all of those industries. But of course, the big thing we have to do to make chip manufacturing work is build new rare earth mineral mining facilities. Currently, the U.S. is working with Australia to do a lot of that. Australia, of course, has very big iron mining operations. They're some of the best mining operations in the world. They're looking to build up facilities in many different countries, including in the Middle East even. And so the U.S. will probably do a lot more business with them. Propping up Australia also puts them in a more advantageous, makes them a better ally because, of course, they're also part of the Quad Alliance against the Chinese Communist Party in that region. And also the U.S. is looking into its own mining operations as well. So again, it's not just the end factory, it's the entire infrastructure that supports it and all that's being worked on right now.
Yeah, and I think recently we opened the first rare earth mining, I think it was in Wyoming, in a long time, maybe almost a century. And then to a quick point about Australia and kind of like a buffer and try to be an ally against China in a way. Didn't Pete Hegseth recently ask all of the allies what your commitment is? And Australia wasn't committed, I think. New Zealand wasn't committed, but South Korea and Japan were?
Yeah, he just checked with them. That's right. He basically said, "Are you ready to go to war with China?"
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is gnarly. Like I know that a lot of people, and I feel it's more of the old guard. You're still like, oh, it's the KGB and it's the Kremlin and all that. That's the big bad. Like they're not really the big bad. These same people that are telling us that the big bad were handing reset buttons to Medvedev and say, hey, new relations, we're all good now. And now suddenly, no.
Yeah, the New START treaty. Yeah.
Yeah, or Obama telling Medvedev, like, hey, second term, I'll have a lot more leeway to work together. Like, excuse me. Yeah, we completely forget, but Trump's the puppet, right? So with all that, it's like we keep ignoring China. And you and I mentioned this when we met up the first time. It's like you said it, like we as Americans are more concerned about Taiwanese than Taiwanese are about CCP and what they do. But hopefully, with the interior, was it the deputy interior minister, I think it was, that had a Sky News interview where it's like China wants to invade Taiwan. It's like, I know, we've been telling you. So it looks like, hey, it's almost game time. I feel like they're finally waking up to that fact. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Don't hang up yet. But for those that are tuning in, Joshua, where can they follow to keep up with you on the socials, and where can they best watch your show?
Yeah, so I do a show called Crossroads. You can find it on YouTube. That's Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. You can also follow me on X, and that's at Josh J. Philipp.
All right. And for anybody listening in the podcast, the audio version, you guys know, I'll be leaving links to any and everything that we referenced here, including his socials and that episode I recommend all you guys to watch about AI in the description down below. And you can find the show notes at theandresegovia.com. Joshua, remember, don't hang up yet, but thank you so much for joining me here on the program. It's been great. Who knows, we might be able to do this again sometime to see where things are, maybe like in 2 months after this whole thing has blown over.
It's wild time, right, man. You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, thanks for being here. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.